Let's give it a minute for a couple of people to join, and I'll monitor the chat. And Chairperson Fielding is on, so we're good. We've got good adult supervision tonight. All right, let's see. Okay. All right, give it one more minute and then we're ready to go. All right, well, since we want to be on time, let's go ahead and start. So, I want to thank everybody for joining us for the City of Charleston Citizens Police Advisory Council's meeting regarding the Police Data Initiative. As you probably read, we're putting on these periodic informational sessions to make sure that we're getting information from our law enforcement partners at the Charleston Police Department in front of the community. And we know they hold sessions on all of these things, and we want to do more of that so that we can hopefully expand the umbrella of information that's going out. So as you saw in the invite that we sent, the City of Charleston's got an amazing tool called the Police Data Initiative. And what that's really been in place since 2017. So it's not as new as it may sound, but it's been a work in progress that's evolved over time. And you're going to hear a lot about that tonight. And you're going to hear about there's a roadmap going forward, because like anything else you deal with technology, the more time you have, the more enhancements you make, the more you improve on it. But this is a great tool that gives some transparency. In fact, gives a lot of transparency into what the police department's doing. You can see things like complaints, you can see incidents, you can see arrests, you can separate fact from fiction. There's a lot of dialogue out there in the public about, even in my own neighborhood, everybody thinks there's crime on every street. And then, when you go look at the dashboard and you compare that to what people think or the rumors, you get a better indication of the true activity in your neighborhood, which makes you more aware, but it also helps you interact with our law enforcement partners as well. So what we've done is we've asked David Crosby and Lieutenant Salkeld, who handle a lot of the data information, to give us a quick presentation on the tool. It's a website you can access, and they'll go through that to really help us understand the tool we have in front of us, so the community can also give feedback on things that we'd like to see as enhancements, or just to better understand how to use the tool as it is. I'm going to turn this over to Emily Broom, who also sits on the advisory council with me, and she's going to host this evening. So Emily, I'm going to give it over to you.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for everyone for joining us. We hope that you find this very informative, and that if you think of some questions that you want to ask us while we're doing the presentation, please enter them into the chat. Do not hesitate to do that. We want this to be interactive when we get to the question and answer portion of the presentation. And again, thank you to Lieutenant Brian Salkeld and to David Crosby for putting this together. And always thank you to Paul for all the help that you do to make this possible as well. But we'll go ahead and get started with the presentation. We want to be timely and make sure we don't take up too much of anyone's time. But our other hope for this is that anybody that is participating, that you also share the information with other people in your community and your neighborhood, and let them know that this is available and things that you learned tonight. It's always good to pass the word along. So we hope that this continues to grow as we do these throughout the year, and that the word gets out so that we have more participants in the future. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. And again, if you have any questions that you think of while the presentation is happening, just please put those in the chat, and we'll get to those when we get to the Q&A portion.
All right, as we get started, just want to make sure that you can see my screen. Somebody just confirm that for me.
We can.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Yeah. Thank you everyone very much for attending this tonight. You know, we think that data is very important. And as mentioned, this resource has been in place since 2017 in some sort of fashion. So, you know, the more eyes that we get on this and the more people that we let know that this exists, and the more feedback, you know, the more data we can provide and kind of make it better so that it serves the community needs, and kind of open up some of that dialogue. Just really quickly, you know, this is me. I'm the data integration and analysis manager for the city. That's just a fancy way of saying that, you know, I'm responsible for maintaining access to our data. And then the analysis portion, I'm fortunate enough to work with a very talented team of analysts in our crime intel unit. And those are the ones that are going to put together, you know, our reports. They aggregate a lot of information, you know, for this web resource as well for the community, but they also provide information to our command staff and administrative staff so that they can make, you know, appropriate decisions based on the data in front of them. So police data initiative, you know, you'll hear that term thrown around a lot. You know, what is it exactly? The easiest way for me to describe it is the National Policing Institute came up with an idea, you know, or a challenge, if you will, that, you know, police departments should provide information to their community and communities should ask for information from their departments that kind of bridge some of the questions and information gaps between the two. So this whole initiative was just a chance for a police department to either say, hey, I've got data, I want to share it. And then they have a national map. They'll show you the, you know, 120 different law agencies across the United States that are currently sharing. But it also allows for citizens to ask if their department is not sharing, you know, they can bridge that conversation to see if they can get their department as part of this program as well. But at the end of the day, it's all about, you know, transparency and trying to get this information out to our community. So as we move forward, this is our site. This is the main landing page. And originally, and I had prepared an entire spread or, you know, presentation on this to kind of walk you through it. But instead, I think I'm just going to jump on over to our website because I think it'll be a little bit more helpful helping you to navigate it. So first of all, how do you get to it? You know, that's probably the first question that we get a lot of times. You know, most people are familiar with the Charleston website, and you can go to our city website and you can go to government, find the police department. You can expand transparency, and there's the police data initiative. Now, that was a whole lot of clicks to get to one place, so I'm going to show you one slightly faster way. So we already started with our charleston-sc.gov. That's our main website. You just have to remember 3 more letters afterwards. If you type in PDI, it'll take you to the exact same website. So that's a little bit easier to remember than, you know, maybe going through our website. All right. So once you're here, you know, again, you'll kind of see our main data sets that we break everything out to: professional standards dashboard, our Opstat report, our incident map, and our police response data sets. So I'm going to go through these a little bit out of order just to kind of show you how the site has kind of morphed over time and improvements that we've made and some of the things that we're looking to do going forward. So the first of these that we're going to look at is our Opstat report. So a little bit of background about Opstat. You know, it actually derived from New York City in the 90s from a initiative referred to as Compstat. And basically all that was breaking down that, you know, they had all this data coming in. How could we use that data to leverage our day-to-day to know where our, you know, the high crime areas are, the time of day, different types of analysis, different types of trends. So in other words, leveraging that data to make, you know, informed decisions. The city of Charleston adopted this method, and then over time, we've kind of adapted it to what we do on a day-to-day basis. And this is actually a report that does go to our command staff every single Monday. And so the one that we're about to click on was actually uploaded this morning. So once you get to this landing page, the very first document will always be the most recent Opstat report. And this is a running report. So that means that it's going to have information up to the point that it was compiled for that particular year. You can go back to historical years, you know, and see 2021, 20, and so on and so forth, and see the reports for those years. But for the current year, you're only going to see the most recent because it's going to include everything before it. So when you click on the report, you know, it's going to open up, it's just a PDF, but it's going to open up in this environment. As you can see, it'll tell you when it was uploaded, tells you the week. And when we scroll down and get into this, you're going to start with just an overall look at quantitative analysis of the entire department for not just this week, but this month, this quarter, and year to date. You're also going to look at incidents, and you're going to see a 5-year range, which is this black bar. You're going to see last year, which is this red bar on each black bar. You're going to see where we are currently in this year for each month. And then you're also going to get a projection based on, current numbers that are coming in. You'll have the same thing for arrests. So that gives you a kind of an overview of where we're trending. Are we going up? Are we at the top of our 5-year range, at the bottom? Kind of, are we going in the right direction? And it's the same thing down here. So you're going to start seeing, what is our current numbers? What was this last week? What was it last year? So again, you start to kind of get these percentages of knowing, am I increasing a lot? Am I decreasing a lot? What are the things that are really starting to stand out so that we can address them? Each of these also have a map. Some people are a little bit more visual. And so this is just a visual representation of where in the city are things kind of, getting a little bit, as we call, warmer or cooler. And then as we go down, we actually break each of these out into teams. Now, for those that aren't familiar with teams are just kind of like our precincts. There's different parts of the city that we break it up to better manage it. So team 1 is downtown, usually north of Calhoun is the best way for me to describe it. Team 2 is south of Calhoun on the peninsula. Team 3 is James and Johns Island. Team 4, is out in West Ashley. And team 5 is Daniel Island. So again, you'll have some of these same trend analysis. You'll have the broken out area that they're covering, broken down by their beats, and as well as this analysis for each week, month, quarter, and year to date. We also list out each of the case numbers and the offense type that happened for that particular week. And a lot of the times this is used by our investigators to give updates on anything that's outstanding or needs to be brought up to command in their weekly meeting. As we go through the bottom, we have one more sheet on here that's a little bit different. And this is something that's kind of been added in the last 1.5 to 2 years. So one thing that we look at a lot is where are we spending our time? Where are the 911 calls coming? And as you can see, a lot of times these calls aren't exactly what you think that they might be. We have traffic accidents, a disturbance or nuisance, 911 open line, but then you also have a lot of alarm calls with a lot of these being, false alarms. So this kind of lets our command kind of know where we're spending a lot of our calls, a lot of our time, a lot of our effort. And then as well, you start to see overdose and suicides. Unfortunately, a lot of news has been out there about a rise in overdoses and suicides. And, we're starting to see some of the data to support that. But we also found that we weren't, really tracking this very well. So we've put a number of measures into place to start tracking that kind of information so that we can better, report on it, track it, and at least have a baseline. It's not perfect, but it is definitely better than where it was a couple of years ago. And that's also why you're going to see that it only goes back to 2021 because of when we implemented those new changes to make the data to what we consider to be reportable. One thing I would also like to point out, and you will see this on every product that we put out, it doesn't matter if it's a dashboard or if it's a report, but you're going to have what we refer to as some sort of footnote. And what that footnote is going to tell you, and on this particular one, is it's at the bottom of the screen. It will tell you exactly what you're seeing. It's going to tell you who put it together, when it was put together, the data sources that it came from, and if we exclude anything. So like in this report, we exclude unfounded cases. So it'll go through and it'll tell you any nuances so that you know exactly what you're getting, so that you don't think that the numbers are looking funny or how did we get there. That's what those footnotes are for, to tell you exactly how we derived it and how we calculated it. So this one's pretty straightforward, not a whole lot to it. Another option you have is to go up here. If you would like to download a copy, you can just click on that little arrow and it'll download a PDF to your computer. One thing I just wanted to go back over if you look at this layout, this is actually how all of our information in 2017, before we started making changes, was presented. It was just a dump of files into this kind of structure where it was just a word, and you had to kind of filter through to find what you were looking for. They were kind of disjointed. They weren't always in the right order, and it was very difficult to navigate and find what it was exactly you needed or what you were trying to get off of our site. So because of that, we'll go into our next set, which is our police response data sets. And this is something that derived in 2017 to try to make this information more approachable, other than that static report, which is still appropriate to be over there. So if we click on this little guy, it will take us to this. And as with anything, we try to tell you what you're looking at kind of at the very beginning. It gives you a description, why it's here, what it's used for. And each of these tabs represent a different type of data. And again, at the very beginning, it's going to explain, what are the arrests? What are we giving you? These are also referred to as story maps. So the way that this flows, a lot of people are left to right. This information actually goes from top to bottom. So you can either click on these arrows, that arrow, this arrow, or you can scroll down, but we're just going to click once. And what that's going to do is whatever's highlighted in black will actually show you the arrest for 2022. So this is everything in 2022 up to the first quarter. So this particular resource is manually updated once a quarter. And one common thing that you're going to see is a lot of our information right now is manually uploaded, which is something we're going to try to get away from, and we've already started to. But so right now, this is not real time. It'll be each quarter, usually within the first 14 days of the next quarter, this gets manually updated. So each of those arrests from the first quarter get plotted onto these maps. And then we also provide raw data. So you can get a spreadsheet that has all of this information, and you can, plot it yourself. You can run your own analysis. You can do your own totals if you'd like to. We also provide a shape file, which is basically a map file. So if people are familiar with Esri, they can load that file, and they basically don't have to redo the work. They can just load the file in that program and get these dots already plotted. KMZ is basically the Google equivalent to the shape file. So if you like Google Maps, that is a file that you can actually load in there, and it'll plot these as well. This map is also interactive. You can zoom in to kind of get greater detail. And then each of these points you can actually click on. And whenever you click on this, you're going to get whatever fields that we're providing for each data set. It's usually going to give you the date, the time, a general location, X, Y's if you would like to plot it. And then it's also going to usually give you some demographic information as well. So another thing that can sometimes get hidden and overlooked on this particular map is, so this particular record actually has more than one. That means that more than one person was arrested at this particular address during this time frame. And the way that I know that is this little arrow right here. So if you were to click on that, it'll actually take you through the records so you can see the other ones. This tends to happen more at businesses, not quite as much as at a residence. So if you see like a large conglomerate of little dots, definitely look for that little tab so that you can go through. We've also started doing this where it's historical. So this will actually plot, everything in 2021, and it goes all the way back to 2015. So you can actually look at each year one by one, download those raw files if you'd like to, and you could actually potentially do a historical analysis all the way going back to 2015. In this particular data set, we also have our field contact cards, our electronic citations, calls for service, which is basically CAD calls, people calling 911, and then hate bias, which is anything that we have labeled in our RMS as a hate bias. All right. So that's the open, data response sets. Fairly straightforward. Just remember those tabs. Read the top, the description to tell you what it is that you're getting, and just know that this is updated quarterly. All right. So, in 2017, like I said, we made that particular data set and, we're really kind of liking the way that that flowed, but then we're realizing it doesn't really have the filters that people are looking for. How do we make the data just a little bit more approachable to get some of those larger number data sets like calls for service where you have 100,000 in a year to where people can really kind of digest that a little bit easier than just looking at just thousands of dots on a map. And so that's when we started thinking about dashboards. The first dashboard that I'm going to go to is the professional standards dashboard. And again, at the beginning, it'll give you a statement, as to what this data set is, the information that's going to go there. This one also has contact information. So if you'd like to contact the Office of Internal Affairs, all of that information is here. And as we go through, you can see this is kind of our first attempt at a kind of a more modern dashboard. It's taking a whole bunch of information and just trying to make it super visual, very easy to look at, and just to get that top level view. Everything in here is also clickable. So this little slider bar is your date. So, I can change the date range and all of these will update. You notice that there are two different date bars because these are different data sets. So they're filtering off of different data fields. So if you want to change the date on this one, you would have to move it as well. You can also go to each of these fields and click on it and just to select the date that you'd like to start with and end with, and it'll also update as well. You can click on the type of complaints or the internal investigation, and everything will scale, to what the numbers are for that particular type. Some questions that we get asked about this particular data set is, how do I have 693 allegations if I only have 687 officers listed? And unfortunately, that means that one officer may have had multiple allegations. And then as for this, the beauty is, we have 345 submissions, but there were 610 officers involved in the compliments. And then as we go to the next screen, one thing that you can see is we really start to break out the type of allegations that have come in, and it gives you a count. The only limitation currently for this particular type of data that we have here is we do not have a date range or slider to allow you to depict the date range at this time, just given the complexity of how we have to generate this particular information, but that is something that we're working on. But again, everything in here is clickable, where you can start seeing how it relates to the whole. So super user friendly, very approachable, pretty straightforward. And so this was kind of our first step at doing a dashboard. But this was also our first time putting out any sort of internal affairs data, which is actually a big step for us and something that was inside of the racial bias audit. So fast forward a little bit later, last year, so that first dashboard came out last year. We then decided to put together an incident map. This is something that a lot of departments have. Some people use community crime map. I believe that's what North Charleston and other agencies have. So we wanted to build our own kind of in a way that we thought that was more appropriate for our information or to display it a lot easier. So if you click on that one, it's going to bring up this map. And, just to give you an idea of what's coming up here, it's kind of what we call part one crimes or Opstat crimes. But here's a list of exactly what you're going to see and what the icons are. And so now we're just going to walk through this. This is kind of how we vision you or citizens going through our data to make it significantly more approachable and easier to use. So first of all, we have 3 filters that come up. You can select the type of charge if you just want to know about homicides in an area, or weapon law violations. You can do that. You can actually
David, did we lose you? Emily, are you still out there?
I'm still here. I cannot hear David, but he
Okay.
said 1 second, I think.
Okay. It sounded like you froze up. Apologies, everyone. This only happens to the techie guys. Okay, yeah, I can see him move around. So the screen's not frozen yet.
All right, there we go. I apologize about that. All right, can you hear me now?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, so again, going back to this, you have your 3 different filter types. We already went through the crime type. You can do data crime. Again, you can click in here and select the date range that you'd like. So let's just go for started this year and to the defaults. And you turn these filters on and off. So now it's going to populate everything. So if I click that filter, it's going to apply that filter, So if I just want aggravated assault with a firearm, and you could do hour of crime. That one's a little bit more finicky. You need to do military time on that. But probably the biggest feature of this that I think everybody really likes is that you can actually type in your address. So if I go up here and I say 180 Lockwood, it's going to take it, to whatever my address is. So I don't even have to find my house. You can just type your address up there and it'll take you straight to your area. And again, these maps are zoomable. You can zoom in and out. You can do that by clicking plus sign, minus sign. And if you ever get lost, you can just click the home button and it'll take you downtown. Another feature of this, each of these are clickable, these little icons at the top. Whatever I'm seeing on my screen, this total will automatically change. So if I zoom in, if I'm going around my house and I want to know exactly what's going on in my area, it's now going to tell me, there are 33 incidents in this area and what type they are. And then you can expand these and actually click on individual ones and it'll highlight them and tell you what they are. Or you can click on the map, and get information on each one of these. So it's kind of neat that whenever you are getting kind of down to the nitty gritty of your area, you can really kind of get a quick picture of what's going on around you and those totals. Another option you have is you also can change the map. Some people don't like this map. They would like to have, more of a Google Earth type look of where they are. You can do that. You can make it dark gray. I mean, kind of whatever your preference is. And so the footnote on this one is actually at the end. So the little icon of the police badge will actually tell you again, your source data and how it's counted. And then you also have the ability to come here and let's say, you wanted to print something out for your neighborhood. You can zoom into whatever it is you want, select the format that you would like it in, the file type that you would like it in, and it'll actually print you out a report, screen capped and everything with the type of information and a key of what you were just looking at. Another thing to keep in mind is this is actually the first automated data set that we have on our website. So this is actually no manual entry on our end or manual need. It's actually updated weekly. It does have a week delay on purpose that just allows our investigators to go through and to properly update the case and get their correct charges so that we're not, changing the numbers too much. And generally with that 1 week delay, it gives you a more accurate picture of what's actually out there. So I think that's a very quick overhead view of all these things. I didn't want to kind of overcomplicate it and also wanted to leave a bunch of time for questions. So I'll go ahead and open it up for that.
Thank you so much. That was a great presentation. We did have a few that were submitted ahead of time. One of them was just, are there any limitations on browsers or devices that you could use to look at this? Like, does it need to be on a laptop, or can you use an iPhone or iPad or a certain browser? Does it make it more optimal?
Right. Yeah, no, that's a great question. And the answer there is it depends. But I mean, the beauty is all of these will work to some capacity, no matter if it's on a cell phone or a tablet. But those newer features that we were showing you, kind of that incident map and that professional standards dashboard, those are mobile optimized. So they will actually change the way that they function and flow, so that it's a more user-friendly experience on a phone with bigger tiles, buttons. So that those are really nice for that. The police response data sets, if you're trying to access 100,000 dots on a cell phone, it's probably not going to be quite as fun. And then the Opstat report, it's just a standard PDF, and most phones and tablets now and mobile environments will just kind of load those in a generic way. But definitely the incident map and professional standards dashboard work great on tablets and phones, and that is where we're kind of transitioning everything so that it will be very friendly on those.
That's great. And next question is, what's the roadmap for future enhancements, and what's kind of your vision of how this will look in years to come?
Yep. So at least in the short term, we'll look to revamp data that's already there. So again, those police response data sets, they're broken down into years. They don't really have a whole lot of filters. It's a lot of information that's not easily digested or kind of sliced through, especially as you mentioned, a lot of citizens really want to know what's going on in my area. And, maybe I don't want to have to click on 7 tabs to know how many of this, and this. We could potentially put them all in one place and ask you, show me these particular data sets. So kind of making what's already there better is definitely a huge priority. And I think something that we could do, probably quicker out of all the things on the roadmap. The kind of long-term pieces are just more data. There are things that we're working on and we would like to put out there. And the more we get into this automation, the easier it becomes. It's just that manual process really kind of limits how much we can put out and how often. So yeah, I mean, we are actually kicking off a project in another week that starts laying the foundation for a lot of this. So hopefully more to come very soon, and a lot of enhancements down the road. So any feedback from the community is welcome as we start to develop these new things.
I know everyone will be excited to see what's to come. I mean, it's already great information, and I think it's in a great format right now, but I know we'll look forward to that. Another question we have is about the arrest data set. If a person isn't arrested at the crime scene, but arrested after the fact, maybe at their residence, is that documented at their residence, or is it just documented that an arrest was made at the crime scene?
That is actually a great question. So it's going to be basically on whatever the arrest location was. But a lot of our arrest data, especially the XY and the points, are slightly offset so that it doesn't fall directly on the location. So I mean, that's also where you have the difference between an incident and arrest. Kind of as you mentioned, the incident will be the location where something occurred, and the arrest will be where we made the arrest.
Thank you so much for clarifying that. Another question, if they see like a discrepancy, or that they feel they notice a discrepancy in something that's uploaded versus what they observed or were thought had happened, who should they contact, or what are the steps to make someone aware of that?
Yep. So I mean, if you contact our public information team, they'll get it routed to us. That's always a really good, just kind of common point of contact. And they will definitely forward it on to us. And, I'll be the first one to tell you that there is a very human element involved, and we're not perfect. And we did, last summer have an incident to where we did post some data on e-citations, and it was duplicating, some of the tickets on there. And so the numbers were actually larger than what they should have been. Someone did bring it to our attention. We corrected it. It was up there for, about a month before we corrected it. And it just so happened that a community group did some analysis off of those numbers during that month that it was there. And so it was a little bit of a, you know, a learning process for us. And I know that, you know, that group was aggravated. So that's 100% on me. And that's kind of where we're wanting to get some of this automation, you know, to kind of take that element out. But definitely if anyone sees anything or has any questions, you know, don't hesitate to contact us.
And I think one more question would be, do you encourage people to get word out about this? I know that we're able to participate in this, and this information was so great that you could share. How would you like us? I know we can post on our community websites through Nextdoor and Facebook a link. Is it best just to post a link directly to the PDI site, or what?
Yeah.
How do you suggest for people?
Yeah, I think it's definitely easier just to put that charleston-sc.gov/PDI. You know, just that initial landing site, that short URL. It's easy to remember. But yeah, I mean, definitely tell anyone, everyone, you know, whether it be word of mouth, social media, whatever it is. I mean, it is a resource that, you know, we take a lot of pride in, and a lot of work and effort goes in to make sure that information gets put there. So definitely the more people that use it, see it, and ask questions, you know, the better it is.
Well, thank you so much for your time. And this was a great presentation. If anybody has any other additional questions really quick, please submit them. I know we got through quite a few of them. But if you have any additional ones, you can submit them now. Or if not, please submit them to us, and we can always get those answered for you and send them to the appropriate person. But I'll turn it back also over to Paul, just to say again our thank yous to everyone who did this. But y'all did an excellent job, Lieutenant Salkeld and David Crosby. So thank you both for your time tonight.
Yep, thank you.
Agreed. Thank you very much, Emily and David. And, you know, anybody on the call or anybody else out there, if you're reaching out, if you'd like to get a copy of the deck, just reach out to us through our contact information, and we can send you a copy of this deck that, you know, you can use for your neighborhood meetings or anything else you want to do. You know, everything we're doing is transparent. The more information we can put in the community's hands, the better we are. So hopefully you all found this to be valuable, and we look forward to our communicating our next upcoming session. Thank you again, everybody, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.